This immigrant kid arrived in North America with almost nothing. No safety net, no powerful family name, no connections to Silicon Valley royalty. He slept on office floors, showered at public gyms, got fired from his own company, was publicly mocked by experts, nearly went bankrupt multiple times, and somehow emerged controlling rockets, electric cars, satellites, artificial intelligence, and the future infrastructure of civilization itself. He didn't build a $2 trillion company yet. But if the trajectory holds, if even half of his bets succeed, he won't just be remembered as the richest man of his era. He will become the first trillionaire in human history. Not by selling attention, not by dominating ads, not by riding financial speculation, but by placing himself at the center of the systems that keep modern life running. Transportation, energy, communication, computation, space. And when governments finally realized what he was building, it was already too late to stop him. Pretoria, South Africa, 1971. In a country shaped by apartheid, violence and rigid hierarchy, a quiet, awkward boy grew up feeling like an alien in his own environment. His name was Elon Musk. He wasn't athletic, he wasn't socially dominant, he wasn't protected. He was bullied relentlessly, pushed downstairs, beaten unconscious, hospitalized. School was a daily threat. Home offered little refuge. But Elon had one escape hatch: books. Endless books. Science fiction, engineering manuals, physics texts, philosophy. He wasn't reading for entertainment, he was reading for answers. While other children dreamed about fitting in, Elon dreamed about leaving. Leaving school, leaving South Africa, leaving Earth itself. He became obsessed with big questions most adults never even articulate. Why do civilizations rise? Why do they collapse? What happens when intelligence stagnates? What happens if humanity never leaves its home planet? To Elon, these weren't abstract ideas. They were solvable engineering problems. At age 10, he taught himself how to code. At 12, he sold a video game he built called Blastar for $500. It wasn't about the money, it was proof that ideas could be turned into reality. Proof that systems could be built from nothing. He devoured the works of Isaac Asimov and Douglas Adams. But he didn't read them as fiction, he read them as blueprints. He believed the universe followed rules, and if you understood those rules deeply enough, you could bend outcomes at scale. By his late teens, Elon knew one thing with absolute certainty: South Africa was not the future. So at 17, he left. No backup plan, no trust fund, no guarantees, just a Canadian passport through his mother and an obsession with escaping gravity, both literal and social. He worked brutal, physical jobs, cleaning boiler rooms, shoveling grain, sleeping wherever he could. Eventually, he made his way to the United States and into the University of Pennsylvania, where he studied physics and economics. It was an unusual pairing, but it would later define everything he built. Understand the laws of reality, then understand how capital moves through them. In 1995, Elon was accepted into a PhD program at Stanford. 2 days later, he dropped out. 2 days. The internet was exploding, and Elon could feel it. This wasn't just communication, this was infrastructure. Whoever controlled infrastructure would control the future. He and his brother started Zip2, an online city guide that helped newspapers transition into the digital age. Elon coded relentlessly, slept in the office, showered at the YMCA, lived on instinct and caffeine. 4 years later, Compaq bought Zip2 for $307 million. Elon walked away with $22 million. Most people would stop there. Elon accelerated. He poured almost everything into his next company, X.com, an online financial platform designed to reinvent money itself. The company was aggressive, ambitious, chaotic. Internal conflicts exploded. Elon clashed with executives. The board removed him as CEO while he was on his honeymoon. That company later became PayPal. When eBay acquired PayPal in 2002 for $1.5 billion, Elon received roughly $180 million. Overnight, he became rich by any conventional standard. And then he did something no rational person would do. Instead of protecting his wealth, instead of diversifying, instead of retiring, he bet almost all of it on three ideas that nearly everyone believed were impossible: electric cars, private rockets, and the complete reinvention of Earth's energy system. First, Tesla. In the early 2000s, electric cars were jokes, slow, ugly, underpowered, environmental guilt machines for people who cared more about signaling virtue than enjoying driving. Every major automaker had tried and failed. GM famously crushed its EV program and declared the experiment over. Elon didn't just disagree, he rejected the premise entirely. He didn't want an electric car. He wanted the best car in the world, period. Faster than Ferraris, smarter than BMWs, powered by software instead of pistons. He invested, took control, fought engineers, ignored consultants, slept on factory floors. Tesla nearly collapsed multiple times. In 2008, during the global financial crisis, Tesla was weeks away from bankruptcy. Elon had to choose between saving Tesla or saving SpaceX. He saved both, barely, by wiring his last remaining capital into the companies just days before payroll would have failed. Second, SpaceX. NASA had become slow, expensive, and bureaucratic. Launching rockets cost hundreds of millions of dollars, and failure was tolerated as long as the paperwork was perfect. Elon saw a broken system. So he asked a question no one else dared to ask. What if rockets were reusable? Experts laughed. Investors mocked him. Engineers said it violated economic reality. 3 launches failed. Millions burned. SpaceX was on the brink of collapse. On the 4th launch, it worked. Years later, SpaceX landed a rocket vertically on a floating drone ship in the ocean. Then again, then again. What once cost $200 million dropped by an order of magnitude. Governments noticed. Militaries noticed. NASA noticed. SpaceX quietly became the dominant launch provider on Earth. Then came Starlink. Thousands of satellites forming a private internet mesh around the planet. Remote villages, disaster zones, war zones. Entire nations depending on infrastructure owned by a single company. Starlink wasn't just internet, it was leverage. Third, energy. Solar roofs, power walls, megapacks, grid-scale storage. Elon didn't want to sell clean energy. He wanted to replace the fossil fuel system entirely. Cars, homes, cities, plugged into one integrated ecosystem. Tesla stopped being a car company. It became a platform. Cars that update themselves. Factories run by AI. Production optimized by software instead of instinct. Which brings us to the most underestimated piece of Elon's empire: autonomy and artificial intelligence. Self-driving isn't about convenience, it's about eliminating labor. A self-driving fleet doesn't sleep, strike, or age. If Tesla solves autonomy at scale, it doesn't become Uber, it becomes the operating system for transportation. And then there's Optimus, the humanoid robot. Critics laughed again. They laughed at rockets. They laughed at EVs. They laughed at reusable boosters. If Optimus works, even partially, it rewrites labor economics. Manufacturing, logistics, construction, caregiving. Labor becomes software. Scaling becomes infinite. Then came X, formerly Twitter. What looked like chaos was actually consolidation. Control over the global conversation layer. Data, real-time sentiment, influence at scale. And beneath it all, the quiet construction of XAI. Elon's attempt to build an artificial intelligence aligned not with profit alone, but with what he considers truth-seeking. Governments grew nervous. Regulators hesitated. Headlines oscillated between worship and fear. Because Elon Musk isn't building companies, he's building systems. Transportation, energy, communication, computation, space. This is how trillionaires are made. Not by selling products, but by controlling infrastructure. The math supports it. Tesla as an autonomous platform. SpaceX as off-planet industry backbone. Starlink as global internet. Robotics as labor replacement. No one else is playing this game. Mars isn't a vanity project, it's a backup drive. Because Elon believes one thing above all else. Civilizations that don't expand collapse. And if even half of this works, if humanity becomes multi-planetary, the first trillionaire won't be a banker, or a hedge fund king, or an ad tech billionaire. It'll be the immigrant kid who got bullied, slept on floors, and decided Earth wasn't enough. And the most unsettling part, he's still building.